My name is Sarah Martinez, and I kept a secret for 18 months. A tiny contractual clause that Brent, our self-proclaimed visionary CEO, never bothered to read properly. He thought I'd remain the quiet keeper of his empire forever. But this morning, his dismissive laughter triggered the bomb I'd been sitting on. The fluorescent lights hummed their familiar dirge at 3:47 a.m. when my phone buzzed for the fourth time. Sterling Corp again. Their West Coast team was having another meltdown about the quarterly metrics dashboard, and as usual, I was the only one who understood both their archaic systems and our supposedly cutting-edge platform well enough to translate between them. I rolled out of bed, my jade plant catching the blue glow from my laptop screen as I booted up. That plant had survived 3 office moves, 2 layoffs, and countless late nights. Sometimes I felt we had more in common than I cared to admit. The Sterling issue turned out to be another instance of their CFO, Dale Harrison, inputting data in a format our system couldn't parse. It took me 2 hours to write a custom script to fix it, test it, and send detailed instructions to their team. By the time I finished, the sun was creeping through my apartment windows, and I had exactly 43 minutes to shower, dress, and commute to the office for our 8 a.m. stand-up meeting. No one would know I just saved a 7-figure contract from imploding. That was the thing about being really good at your job in tech. The better you were at preventing disasters, the more invisible you became. The office was already buzzing when I arrived at 7:58. Our open floor plan meant I could see straight to Brent's corner office, where he was gesticulating wildly at someone on a video call. Probably investors. His assistant, Monica, caught my eye and mouthed, "Mood," while making a face. Great. One of those days. I slid into my desk just as Raj from engineering wandered over with his coffee. Sterling blew up again last night. "Handled," I said, pulling up my task board. 23 items in the queue, all marked urgent. Everything was always urgent when you were the only person who understood the client's needs. "You're a machine, Martinez. I don't know how you do it." I wanted to tell him it was easy when you had no life outside these gray walls. When your sister's chemo treatments meant you needed every penny of your salary plus bonuses. When walking away wasn't an option. Instead, I smiled and said, "Just good at puzzles." The stand-up was the usual performance theater. Brent dominated the conversation, using buzzwords he'd picked up from whatever podcast he'd listened to during his morning Peloton ride. Synergy appeared 4 times. Blockchain integration made an appearance despite having nothing to do with our B2B software. I updated the team on Sterling's status in under 30 seconds and went back to being invisible. After the meeting, I found Lisa from HR hovering near my desk. She had that pinched look that meant bad news. "Sarah, can we chat for a minute?" We walked to one of the glass-walled meeting rooms. Privacy was an illusion here, but we all pretended otherwise. "I wanted to give you a heads up," Lisa said, fidgeting with her tablet. "There's going to be an announcement about Q3 budget optimization." Budget optimization. Corporate speak for, "We're cutting costs and you should be worried." How bad? "No layoffs planned, but..." She trailed off. "But..." "Freeze on raises and promotions. At least through Q4, possibly longer." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. I'd been planning to request a raise during my review next month. My salary had been stagnant for 2 years, while my responsibilities had tripled. Sterling alone was worth 40% of our company's revenue, and I was the only person managing that relationship. "I know you were probably hoping for an adjustment," Lisa continued. "Your work's been exceptional. It's just timing." It was always timing. Bad timing when the company was struggling. Bad timing when the company was doing well but investing in growth. Bad timing when Mercury was in retrograde and Brent had a hangnail. After Lisa left, I stared at my screen without seeing it. Natalie's next treatment was scheduled for the following week. The insurance covered 60%, which left me with a bill that would wipe out my savings, again. I opened a new document and started typing. Over the next 2 weeks, I built my case. Every Sterling fire I'd extinguished, every contract I'd saved, every weekend I'd sacrificed. The document grew to 15 pages of meticulously documented achievements, complete with email threads, client testimonials, and revenue figures. The Sterling contract was particularly interesting. Buried in Section 47B was a clause I'd negotiated 18 months ago when they were desperate for our services, and I had leverage. If Sterling's designated account manager left the company for any reason, they had the right to terminate the contract with no penalties. At the time, it had been a way to ensure job security. Brent had signed off on it without reading the fine print, too eager to land the big fish. I printed everything at home, using my own paper and ink. The stack was impressive, quantifiable, undeniable. My one-on-one with Brent was scheduled for Thursday at 2 p.m. I wore my best blazer, the one that made me feel like I could conquer small nations. The jade plant had dropped a leaf that morning, which I chose not to see as an omen. Brent kept me waiting 20 minutes, which was typical. When Monica finally waved me in, he was typing furiously on his phone. "Sarah, sit. How's Sterling still happy?" "Very happy," I said, placing my folder on his desk. In fact, that's what I wanted to discuss. He glanced at the folder like it might bite him. "Oh. I've been managing the Sterling account for 18 months now. During that time, I've increased their spend by 300% and maintained a perfect satisfaction score. I've also taken on additional accounts without any adjustment to my compensation." "Sarah," he said, leaning back in his chair, "you know I value your contributions." "I'm glad to hear that, which is why I'm requesting a salary increase commensurate with my responsibilities." I opened the folder and walked him through the highlights. Revenue generated, crises averted, hours worked. The numbers were stark in black and white. He listened, or at least appeared to, nodding at appropriate intervals. When I finished, he steepled his fingers and gave me what I'm sure he thought was a thoughtful look. "Here's the thing, Sarah, you're thinking about this all wrong." "How so?" "You're focusing on tasks, activities, but what about innovation? What about leadership? What about moving the needle on our core KPIs?" I felt my jaw tighten. Maintaining our largest client isn't moving the needle. Maintaining isn't growing. You're doing your job. Yes, but that's what we pay you for. This ask feels, he waved his hand, searching for the word, emotional, not strategic. Emotional. You know what I mean. Look, I get it. Times are tough, but we all have to make sacrifices. I haven't taken a raise either. I knew for a fact he'd bought a new Tesla last month, Model S, license plate DISRPTR. "Brent, I'm not asking for charity. I'm asking for fair compensation based on market rates and my contributions." He laughed then, not a chuckle or a polite laugh, but a full-throated, dismissive laugh that made something inside me snap. "Fair, Sarah. Come on, you're an account manager. You send emails and take calls. Let's not pretend you're curing cancer here." The room went very quiet. I could hear the air conditioning cycling, someone's keyboard clacking in the distance, my own heartbeat loud in my ears. "You're right," I said, closing the folder. "I do send emails." I stood up, smoothed my blazer, and walked to the door. "Sarah, don't be dramatic. Sit down. Let's discuss this like adults." I turned back to face him. "No, I don't think we will. I quit." His face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, annoyance, then a flicker of something that might have been concern. "You can't just quit." "Actually, I'm exercising my right to terminate employment effective immediately." "Your 2 weeks' notice." "Check my contract. Account managers have no notice requirement. Something HR implemented last year to make it easier to fire people. Works both ways." I walked back to my desk in perfect silence. The office had that quality where everyone pretends to work while obviously eavesdropping. I pulled out the cardboard box I'd kept under my desk for 2 years, always knowing this day might come. The jade plant went in first, then my coffee mug, the one with the chip on the handle, a few personal items, everything that mattered fit in one small box. I opened my laptop one last time and composed an email. To Dale Harrison, from Sarah Martinez, subject transition notice. Dale. Effective immediately. I am no longer with Technova Solutions. Per Section 47B of our contract, you have the right to terminate our agreement with no penalties due to a change in account management. It has been a pleasure working with you. I remain available for consultation on a freelance basis if Sterling Corp requires continuity of service. Best regards, Sarah Martinez. I copied Brent and hit send. Then I stood up, picked up my box, and walked toward the elevator. Behind me, I heard Brent's door slam open. "Sarah, wait." I didn't wait. The elevator doors closed on his red face, and I descended 23 floors to freedom. My phone started buzzing before I reached the lobby. Brent calling. I declined. Lisa from HR. Declined. Monica. I almost answered that one but thought better of it. The October air was crisp outside, and I realized I'd never left the office at 2:30 p.m. on a Thursday before. The city looked different in the afternoon light, softer somehow. I was sitting in a cafe, jade plant on the table beside me, when the texts started rolling in from former colleagues. Holy shit, Brent is losing his mind. HR is in full panic mode. Did you really just nuke Sterling? I ordered a latte and pulled up my personal laptop. Dale had already responded. From Dale Harrison to Sarah Martinez. Subject: Transition notice. Sarah. I just got off the phone with your CEO. He seems to be under the impression that you'll reconsider. I told him we'll be terminating the contract effective immediately. What are your consultation rates? Sterling would like to maintain continuity. And frankly, you're the only person who understands our systems. Let's discuss. Dale. I smiled and started typing my rate sheet. Double my previous salary seemed like a good starting point. By the time I finished my latte, I had 3 more emails from other Sterling executives and 2 from their competitors. Word traveling fast in our incestuous industry. My phone showed 47 missed calls from various Technova numbers. I walked home slowly, stopping to buy fresh flowers from a vendor I'd passed every day for 3 years but never had time to patronize. The jade plant looked good next to the sunflowers. That evening, I sat in my apartment with a glass of wine and watched the sunset from my fire escape. My laptop showed a steady stream of LinkedIn notifications. Brent's profile updates were particularly satisfying to watch. Seeking new opportunities in executive leadership. Open to consulting arrangements. Passionate about digital transformation. The last update came around 11 p.m. Sometimes change chooses you. Excited for the next chapter. I knew from Monica, who'd texted me the play-by-play, that the board had held an emergency meeting at 7 p.m. The loss of Sterling had triggered a domino effect. 2 other major clients were reconsidering their contracts. The Q3 numbers, already shaky, were now catastrophic. Someone had to take the fall. Brent's golden parachute was more like a bronze handkerchief, enough to keep him afloat for a few months, but not enough to maintain his lifestyle. The Tesla would be the first to go. I closed LinkedIn and opened my new business email. 7 inquiries already, all from companies I'd interfaced with over the years. They wanted what I'd given Sterling, someone who actually understood their business, not just their contracts. The rate I quoted them was triple my old salary. 2 had already agreed. I drafted a business plan that night, nothing fancy, just a simple structure for a consulting firm focused on relationship management for enterprise software companies. No open floor plans, no mandatory fun, no KPIs measuring things that didn't matter, just good work for fair pay. Natalie called as I was finalizing the LLC paperwork. How did the meeting go? I quit. Silence, then. Sarah, no, the treatments. I've got it covered. Actually, better than covered. I explained about the consulting offers, the rate I was charging, the steady stream of inquiries. She cried, which made me cry, which made us both laugh at the absurdity of crying over good news. I'm proud of you, she said, for standing up for yourself. Only took me 38 years to learn how. Better late than never. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of my apartment. City lights twinkling outside. The jade plant sat on the windowsill, leaves glossy in the streetlight. Tomorrow I'd start looking for office space, something with natural light and room for more plants. My phone buzzed, a LinkedIn message from someone at Technova I'd never heard of. Hi, Sarah. I'm the interim CEO brought in to stabilize things. I'd love to discuss bringing you back in a senior role with significant equity. The board recognizes the mistakes that were made. I archived the message without responding. Some bridges were meant to stay burned. The next morning, I woke up without an alarm for the first time in years. The sun was already up, streaming through my windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. I made coffee in an actual mug instead of a travel thermos and sat at my kitchen table with my laptop. The sterling contract was my first order of business. Dale had agreed to my rates without negotiation, which made me realize I should have asked for more. Live and learn. We scheduled a call for that afternoon to discuss transition plans. By lunch, I'd registered my LLC, set up a business bank account, and created a simple website. Martinez Consulting. Clean, professional, no buzzwords. The services page had one line: I solve problems. Monica texted me around 2 p.m. Brent's assistant called asking for the Sterling file passwords. What should I tell them? The truth. They're all documented in the handover folder I created 6 months ago. Section 3, subsection A. The folder no one ever reads. That's the one. You're evil. I love it. The Sterling call went smoothly. Dale was professional but warm, expressing regret about the situation while being clearly delighted to be free of Technova's bureaucracy. We structured a 6-month engagement with options to extend. I'd work directly with their team. No intermediaries, no telephone game. Can you start Monday? Dale asked. I can start tomorrow if you need me. Monday's fine. Oh, and Sarah, we're not the only ones interested in your services. I hope you're ready to scale. Scale. Such a Brent word, but coming from Dale, it sounded different, like growth. Not just growth hacking, like building something real. That weekend, I found a small office space in a converted warehouse. 2nd floor, corner unit, windows on 2 sides. The landlord, an artist who lived on the 3rd floor, was happy to have a quiet tenant who paid on time. I signed a lease that afternoon. Sunday was for furniture shopping. I kept it simple: a solid desk, a comfortable chair, some shelving. The jade plant would go on the windowsill where it could get proper sunlight, not the filtered fluorescence of corporate life. I was arranging my new space when Raj texted. Heard you went freelance. Need any dev help? I'm thinking of making a move myself. By Monday morning, I had my first employee lined up and 3 more client meetings scheduled. The Sterling work was straightforward without layers of corporate interference. What used to take me hours of meetings and approvals now took 30 minutes of direct communication. Wednesday brought news of Technova's continued implosion. They'd lost 2 more major accounts, and the interim CEO was cleaning house. Middle management was being gutted. The ping-pong table had been removed, and the craft beer tap had run dry. I felt bad for some of my former colleagues, the ones who'd been good at their jobs but trapped in a bad system. I reached out to a few, letting them know I might have overflow work. Building a network of skilled freelancers seemed smarter than recreating the bloated structure I'd escaped. By the end of my first month, Martinez Consulting had 6 steady clients and enough inquiries to be selective. I hired a part-time admin, someone who actually understood the difference between urgent and important. The office felt alive but calm, productive without the performative bustle of the open floor plan. Natalie visited on a Friday afternoon, bringing lunch from our favorite Thai place. She looked healthier, the latest round of treatments showing positive results. We ate pad thai at my desk, looking out at the city skyline. I still can't believe you did it, she said. Did what? Burned it all down and built something better. I didn't burn anything down. I just stopped propping up someone else's house of cards. She laughed. Same difference. My phone buzzed. Another LinkedIn message, this time from someone at a Fortune 500 company. They'd heard about my work with Sterling and wanted to discuss their account management challenges. I made a note to respond after lunch. You're going to need a bigger office, Natalie observed. Maybe, or maybe I'll just stay small and selective. Not everything needs to scale. Very un-Silicon Valley of you. Good. After she left, I spent the afternoon reviewing contracts and preparing for Monday's client calls. The work was familiar, but the context was entirely different. Every decision was mine, every success, every failure, all mine to own. Around 5 p.m., I closed my laptop and watered the jade plant. It had grown 2 new leaves since the move. Reaching toward the natural light, I'd bought it a proper pot, terracotta with a drainage dish, replacing the plastic thing it had lived in for years. The office was quiet as I gathered my things. No staying until midnight to fix someone else's emergency. No anxiety about tomorrow's manufactured crisis. Just the satisfaction of good work done well. I locked up and headed home, stopping at the flower vendor again. It was becoming a Friday tradition. This week, yellow roses, bright as sunshine. My apartment felt different now, too. Lighter somehow. Even though nothing had changed but my schedule. I cooked actual dinner instead of eating takeout at my desk. I read a book that had nothing to do with professional development. I went to bed without checking email one last time. Saturday morning brought coffee on the fire escape and a call from Dale. "Sarah, I have a proposition for you." "I'm listening." "Sterling's board is impressed with the transition. They want to discuss a broader engagement, possibly bringing you in to consult on our vendor relationships across the board. That's outside our current scope. That's why they're willing to triple the engagement fee." I nearly dropped my coffee. Triple. You've saved us roughly $2 million in efficiency gains just in the past month. They see the value. We scheduled a meeting for the following week. After hanging up, I sat in the morning sun, processing the number he'd mentioned. At this rate, I'd make more in 6 months than I had in 3 years at Technova. The irony wasn't lost on me. Brent had laughed at my request for a 20% raise. Now his former client was offering me multiples of my old salary to do essentially the same work, just without the corporate theater. My phone showed a text from Monica. "Interim CEO just announced they're pivoting to blockchain. I'm updating my resume." I sent her my rate sheet and a winky emoji. By Monday, I had 3 resumes from former Technova employees in my inbox. The blockchain pivot had been the last straw for anyone with sense. I scheduled interviews, looking for people who valued work over workshops, results over rhetoric. The Sterling board meeting took place in their actual boardroom, not a converted conference room with motivational posters. 12 executives around a mahogany table, all taking notes on paper, not laptops, old school in the best way. "Ms. Martinez," the chairman began, "Dale speaks highly of your work. Dale's team makes it easy. They know their business. That's what we want to discuss. Our other vendor relationships lack that clarity. We'd like you to audit and optimize them. All of them. 23 major contracts. It would be a significant undertaking." I thought about my small office, my growing but manageable client list, my Friday flowers and morning coffee. Then I thought about Natalie's treatments, about building something sustainable, about never having to beg for fair compensation again. "I'll need to bring on additional consultants." "Whatever you need." We negotiated for 2 hours, not about whether I was worth the fee, but about structure, deliverables, and timelines. Professional adults discussing business professionally. Revolutionary. I left with a contract worth more than Technova's entire quarterly revenue from Sterling. The same work I'd been doing, just properly valued. That evening I called Raj. "How serious were you about leaving Technova?" "I gave notice this morning. The blockchain thing was the final straw." "Want to be my technical lead?" "Does it come with equity?" "Everything comes with equity. We're building this together or not at all." He was silent for a moment. "When do I start?" "Monday. Bring the jade plant from your desk. We're starting a collection." Over the next 3 months, Martinez Consulting grew from 1 person to 12. Not employees in the traditional sense, but partners. Each person brought expertise and clients. We shared an office but worked independently, collaborating when it made sense, respecting boundaries when it didn't. The Technova news trickled in through the industry grapevine. The blockchain pivot had failed spectacularly. The interim CEO had been replaced by another interim CEO. Stock price had dropped 60%. Brent's LinkedIn showed he'd taken a position as thought leader in residence at a startup incubator, which everyone knew meant unemployed with a desk. I thought about reaching out once, maybe offering some overflow work. Then I remembered his laugh, dismissive and cruel, and decided some bridges should stay ash. The Sterling optimization project uncovered millions in wasted spend across their vendor stack, not through complex analysis or innovative disruption, just by actually reading contracts and talking to people. Revolutionary concepts in the corporate world. My favorite discovery was a software contract they'd been paying for 5 years that no one was using. The vendor had been auto-billing them $50,000 a month for a product that had been deprecated 3 years earlier. One phone call saved them $600,000 annually. "How did no one catch this?" Dale asked during our review. "Because no one was looking. Everyone assumed someone else was managing it. And at Technova, I was looking, but no one was listening. He nodded, understanding more than I'd said. By month 6, Martinez Consulting had 18 partners and a waiting list of clients. We'd moved to a larger space in the same building, keeping the artist landlord and the good light. The jade plant collection had grown to 15, creating a green wall along the windows. I instituted a few rules. No meetings before 9 a.m. or after 5 p.m. No weekend emails. Unless literally life or death. No buzzwords in any communications. Fair pay for fair work. Radical concepts, apparently. The company ran itself more like a collective than a traditional firm. We voted on major decisions, shared profits equitably, and maintained a slush fund for anyone facing personal crises. When Raj's father got sick, we covered his projects without question. When Monica's kid needed surgery, the fund covered what insurance wouldn't. It wasn't perfect. We had conflicts and growing pains, but we handled them like adults, with conversation, not corporate mandates. 1 year after walking out of Technova, I sat in my office reviewing annual numbers. Revenue was 10 times my highest salary. More importantly, everyone was earning multiples of their corporate wages. We'd helped 6 people through medical crises, funded 2 adoptions, and supported 3 career pivots. Natalie was in remission, planning a trip to Europe she'd dreamed about for years. My apartment had been upgraded to a 2-bedroom with actual sunlight. I'd bought a car that wasn't held together by hope and duct tape. The jade plant that started it all had grown enormous, requiring a floor pot. It sat in the corner of my office, leaves glossy and proud, reaching toward the sky. Dale called that afternoon with news. Sterling's board wants to offer you something. Another project. A board seat, non-voting observer status to start, but they want your perspective in the room. I stared at the phone. From account manager to board observer in 12 months. The kind of trajectory that would have taken decades in the corporate world, if it happened at all. I'll need to think about it. Of course. Oh, and Sarah. You might want to check TechCrunch this afternoon. I pulled up the site and nearly spit out my coffee. The headline read, Technova acquired in fire sale by private equity firm. The details were brutal. Sold for a fraction of its peak valuation. Most staff to be laid off. Technology to be absorbed into the buyer's existing portfolio. The company that had once dominated our sector reduced to spare parts. At the bottom of the article, a quote from an unnamed board member, the loss of key client relationships and critical personnel created an insurmountable challenge. Key client relationships, critical personnel. Corporate speak for Sarah left and took Sterling with her. My phone buzzed. Brent had finally broken his LinkedIn silence. Excited to announce I'm launching a new consulting venture focused on authentic leadership and sustainable growth. Sometimes our greatest failures become our greatest teachers. I almost laughed. Then I remembered his actual laugh. The one that had changed everything, and felt something closer to pity. He'd never understand that his greatest failure wasn't losing the company. It was thinking people were replaceable parts in his success machine. Monica messaged me, "Did you see he's charging $500 for leadership workshops? Lessons from the trenches, how to navigate corporate disruption. Is anyone signing up?" His mom shared it. This time I did laugh, full and free, the kind that had been rare in the fluorescent maze of Technova. That evening, I hosted our monthly partner dinner at my apartment. 18 people crammed around my dining table and scattered through the living room, sharing food and stories. No mandatory fun, just actual enjoyment. Raj raised a glass as dinner wound down. To Sarah, who showed us that quitting isn't giving up, it's choosing better. To choosing better, everyone echoed. After they left, I cleaned up slowly, savoring the quiet. My apartment felt full, even empty, enriched by the laughter and conversation. I checked my email one last time before bed. Between the client inquiries and partnership proposals was one that made me pause. From Brent Stevens to Sarah Martinez. Subject: Congratulations, Sarah. I heard about your success with Martinez Consulting. I wanted to reach out and congratulate you on building something impressive. I realize now that I didn't value your contributions appropriately at Technova. That's on me. I was so focused on metrics and growth that I lost sight of the people making it happen. If you ever want to grab coffee and discuss potential collaboration, I'd welcome the opportunity. Best, Brent. I read it twice. looking for the angle, the manipulation. But maybe there wasn't one. Maybe losing everything had taught him something. Or maybe he was just desperate for connections in an industry that had moved on without him. I archived the email without responding. Some bridges didn't need rebuilding, just acknowledging they once existed. The next morning brought new challenges and opportunities. A Fortune 100 company wanting help with vendor management, a startup needing strategic guidance, 3 resumes from talented people tired of corporate machinery. I approved the hires, scheduled the meetings, and reviewed the contracts. But first, I watered the jade plants, all 15 of them reaching toward the morning sun. My phone showed a text from Natalie. "Booking flights to Paris. Thank you for making this possible." "Thank yourself," I replied. "You survived. I just changed jobs." "You changed lives." Maybe that was true. Maybe walking away from that conference room, box in hand, had been about more than money or respect. Maybe it had been about proving that value isn't determined by the person signing your checks. The Sterling board seat offer sat on my desk, waiting for an answer. It would mean more responsibility, more visibility, more of everything I'd spent years being denied. The little girl who'd been told she was just an account manager wanted to accept immediately. But the woman I'd become took her time. I called Dale to discuss details, negotiated terms that made sense, and accepted on my conditions. The board meetings would be quarterly, not monthly. I'd participate remotely when needed. My first loyalty remained to Martinez Consulting and the people who'd built it with me. The announcement ran in industry publications the next week. Sterling Corp appoints Sarah Martinez to board observer role. The article mentioned my background, the consulting firm, the innovative approach to vendor management. It didn't mention Technova at all. That felt right. The past was context, not definition. 6 months later, I stood in our new office space. We'd taken over the entire second floor of the building. Walls knocked down to create an open but segmented workspace. Plants everywhere. Natural light flooding in. Actual privacy when needed. The team had grown to 35 partners across 6 cities. We'd standardized some processes but kept the core philosophy good work, fair pay, human dignity, revolutionary concepts that somehow kept attracting top talent. I was reviewing expansion proposals when Dale called. "Sarah, I have news. Sterling's acquiring Technova's remaining assets." I sank into my chair. "What's left to acquire?" "The technology, mainly. Some client contracts. We think we can salvage about 40% of the platform." "And the people?" "Skeleton crew. Most everyone talented left months ago. Many of them were here, building something better. The circle completing itself." "We'd like Martinez Consulting to manage the integration," Dale continued. "Full project rate, 6-month minimum." The irony was perfect. The company that had laughed at my value would be carved up under my supervision. I thought about saying no, about leaving that chapter closed. But business was business, and my team could use the revenue. "Send me the details. We'll put together a proposal." I hung up and looked at the jade plant, the original one that had witnessed everything. Its leaves caught the afternoon light, green and gold and growing. 2 years ago, I'd been invisible in a gray cubicle, fighting for recognition that would never come. Today, I was deciding whether to take on a project that would essentially be Technova's funeral arrangements. Brent's workshop business had failed after 3 months. His LinkedIn now listed him as career transition coach, which meant he was still unemployed. I'd heard through Monica that he'd applied to Sterling for a mid-level position. They hadn't called him back. I felt no satisfaction in his struggle. Success wasn't about watching others fail. It was about building something worth succeeding for. The integration project proceeded smoothly. We salvaged what we could of Technova's technology, found homes for the remaining talented employees, and shut down the rest with dignity. The office space was sublet to a nonprofit that actually needed an open floor plan. The ping-pong table went to a youth center. On the final day, I walked through the empty office one last time. The executive corner where Brent had held court was bare. Windows looking out on the same city view that had once seemed so important. The spot where my desk had been was just empty carpet. No trace of the countless hours I'd spent keeping the place afloat. I found myself in the kitchen where I'd microwaved so many sad desk lunches. Someone had left a coffee mug behind, the company logo half worn away. I threw it in the recycling and left. That night, I updated our company documentation. Martinez Consulting now had 42 partners, offices in 8 cities, and a client list that read like a Fortune 500 index. We'd instituted profit sharing, comprehensive healthcare, and a sabbatical program. Everyone owned a piece of what they were building. The jade plant collection had grown to fill an entire wall, a living reminder that growth takes time, light, and proper care. My assistant knocked on my door. "Sarah, your 3 o'clock is here. Send them in." A young woman entered, nervous but determined. She was interviewing for an account management position, fresh from another corporate job that didn't value her. "Tell me," I said, gesturing for her to sit. "Why do you want to work here?" "Because I'm tired of being invisible," she said. "I'm good at what I do, but no one seems to notice unless something goes wrong." I smiled, remembering another version of myself who'd felt the same way. "We notice here, excellence is the baseline, not the exception." We talked for an hour about her experience, her goals, her vision for what account management could be. She had ideas, real ones, not buzzword soup. By the end, I knew we'd found another partner. "When can you start?" Her face lit up. "Really, just like that?" "Just like that. We don't do 17 rounds of interviews here. Either you're right for us, or you're not. You are." She left with an offer letter and a start date. Another person choosing better. As the sun set over the city, I compiled my weekly report for the Sterling board. Revenue up, efficiency improved, strategic goals on track. The metrics Brent had worshipped, except now they meant something real. My phone buzzed with a message from Natalie. A photo from Rome, her standing by the Trevi fountain, healthy and happy and alive. "Living the dream, thanks to you." "Living your dream," I corrected. I just changed the spreadsheets. But we both knew it was more than that. It was about recognizing that your worth isn't determined by someone else's evaluation. It was about building instead of begging. It was about walking away from what diminishes you and toward what elevates you. I closed my laptop and prepared to leave. No emergencies to handle, no fires to fight. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but they'd be ones worth facing. The jade plants glowed in the evening light as I gathered my things. 15 when we'd started, now closer to 50, each one representing someone who'd chosen to build something better. I stopped at the original, the one that had sat on my corporate desk through all those gray years. It had grown beyond recognition, trunk thick and leaves abundant, a survivor, like all of us. The office was quiet as I locked up. Down on the street, the flower vendor was closing shop. I bought the last bunch of sunflowers. Bright faces turned toward tomorrow. At home, I arranged the flowers and poured a glass of wine. My laptop showed the usual stream of opportunities, each one a choice to make, not a favor to beg. I thought about Brent sometimes, wondering if he ever understood what went wrong. The metrics he'd lived by couldn't measure what actually mattered: loyalty, respect, the quiet competence that keeps organizations alive. He'd learned too late that when you treat people as replaceable, they might just replace you. But mostly, I didn't think about him at all. Success was the best revenge, but fulfillment was better than both. My calendar showed a full week ahead: board meetings, client presentations, partnership interviews, each one an opportunity to demonstrate value on my own terms. I raised my glass to the jade plant on my windowsill, the one that had started it all. "To choosing better," I said to the empty room that wasn't empty at all, filled as it was with possibility. The city sparkled outside, full of people in gray cubicles, fighting for recognition that might never come. Some of them would find their way to us eventually, trading corporate theater for actual value. We'd be ready when they did. But tonight was for rest, for satisfaction, for the quiet joy of building something worth building. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new growth, new chances to water what matters and let the rest wither away. I closed my eyes and smiled, thinking of that morning 2 years ago when Brent's laughter had changed everything. He'd been right about one thing: I was just an account manager who sent emails and took calls. I still was. The difference was that now, people knew what that was worth. The jade plant caught the last of the light. Leaves turned toward tomorrow, growing steadily toward the sun. In the end, that's all any of us could do: reach for the light, grow where we're planted, and trust that with the right care, we'd bloom. My phone showed one last message, this one from the new hire. Thank you for seeing me. I won't let you down. You won't let yourself down, I replied. That's what matters. And it was. In the space between who we were and who we could become lay all the possibility in the world. All it took was someone willing to reach for it, to choose better, to build instead of beg. I'd done it. She would too. And together, we'd create something that no amount of corporate metrics could measure, a place where value was recognized. Excellence was standard, and no one had to shrink themselves to fit. The jade plants would keep growing, reaching toward the light, and so would we.